Welcome to Jets Rewind. This is Marty Shupak. I'm in our studios in Valley Cottage, New York. It's Friday, May 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm joined by my co-host Ray Clifford and a special guest, a returning guest, Rich Tinley. How you doing, Rich?
All good over here, guys. How are you all doing in New York?
Everything is good. It's a beautiful day. Ray was in Idaho by way of California. He just got back the other day. So, Ray, how's your body? Are you still on LA time?
A bit on West Coast time still, but this would still only be about 4 o'clock, so that's cool.
Okay. All right, let's get right into it. I think the last time I spoke to you, Rich, we were speaking a lot about Zach Wilson. Since then, we had the draft, and of course, they drafted Zach Wilson. I just want your feelings on the draft. Were you happy? Were you unhappy? Did you think they should have drafted like more offensive linemen? So I'm going to turn it over to you. And I think Ray has a couple of questions too. So go ahead.
Honestly, I'm completely happy with the draft. I think this kind of draft nearly announced that we have a serious GM for the first time in a long while. The moves he made, I think, were all spot on. The trade up for Tucker was a really, really good move. Now, we did lose out a little bit in value, but we also missed out on probably the top free agent on his list. This year, he went to Kansas City. So guard was probably always going to be one of those positions that he might have traded up for. I think he got the best guard there as well. So that ticked a really good box too in the first round. I think both picks in round one were top notch.
Okay, good. All right. In the second round, Elijah Moore. Have you reviewed film of him? And what's your the Jets? Everyone's saying they got great value there. The first three players they picked, Wilson, Tucker, and Moore, they had rated in the top 25. What's your feeling on Elijah Moore?
Yeah, well, we had Moore rated a little bit lower. I think we probably have a little bit of slot receiver bias, as in that, how would you say, you can find a lot of decent kind of slot guys in rounds 3 to 5, and that's kind of maybe what we viewed him a little bit more as. But from skill set, he's elite in almost everything he does. His route running, his precision, hands very, very good. Got good speed to take the top off the defense. He's a lot of strings to his bow. He's probably a better Robbie Anderson, if I'm being honest. And I think he will probably predominantly play in the slot. I think as much as you'd want him to be doing well this year, I think this is probably maybe to move on from Crowder in future. I think this is his replacement. But I from a skill set point of view and his opportunity to grow at Wilson too, and have another weapon there. Again, really, really good moves by the GM.
He's 5'9", he's smallish, but he's a little thicker than people think from the waist down. Ray, do you think this Elijah Moore is just a slot? I happen to think he could play all over. What's your feeling of him?
Well, he's not a big guy, so he's not going to be one of those guys that's going to be able to go up and get contest for passes the same way. But my understanding is between his speed and his quickness, and he's a great route runner already. From what I've read, so I think he, and not to mention if they put him on special teams, I'm always wary of putting a guy on punt returns and having him get injured doing something like that, but. He could be an asset in many different ways for the Jets. So I was completely happy with that pick. I was a little less thrilled with the second half of the draft. Not that they were bad picks, but I think I would have liked to seen another lineman or another guy from another position. You seemed to go heavy on DBs and guys. I thought actually a couple of the undrafted free agents were as good as the draft picks we had towards the end. So it was to me, it was kind of interesting. The guys he ended up getting as undrafted free agent.
Yeah, they did well. I think that too. All right, Rich. Then we didn't have a third round pick because we traded up. Michael Carter's a running back from North Carolina. What's your take on Michael Carter?
Again, another really good player. Great value there as well at round 4. I think he's really versatile, good hands. He can do a lot. I wouldn't see him as your sort of bell cow #1 running back. But again, a bit like the second round pick, he has a lot of strings to his bow too. And that versatility, I think, in what we're kind of envisaging our offense to be, will be probably like worth something quite early on. So I expect him to come out of the gate flying, if I'm being honest, this year. I think adding him to the stable of running backs we already have is pretty good too. You know, he's probably been used to splitting carries too, so he's not going to have that where he wants to come in and try and take over attitude either. So I think he fits in nicely what I think we're trying to do.
Right. And this offense, if they go by way of the San Francisco Shanahan, they like to rotate the backs a lot. With that said, Rich, what do you think this does to a guy like LaMichael Pirine, last year's draft pick, and also they added that other running back from San Francisco? Is he the big loser with this pick?
That's kind of for him to decide, you know, like that's what the NFL is, competition firstly and foremost with your teammates, and then like to have the opportunity to compete on a Sunday. So as I said, I like the stable of running backs we have. You know, I think Pirine is capable of like earning a roster spot. Of course I do it. I just don't think he will, because, you know, I don't think the way he started off, his ceiling as well is probably a bit lower than a few of the other guys we have there. So when I think all of those things are taken into account, he could be the odd guy out this year. Like, and the fact being as well, like there's nobody really here left that's tied to him in terms of drafting him really. Like, you know, I think with a new head coach there, he could quite easily say this is how we're moving forward, you know. So yeah, I think he probably is the most likely to miss out.
Right now, on the depth chart, they list Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, Michael Carter, and LaMichael Pirine. We'll have to see what happens. It should be interesting. All right, in the 5th round, they had 3 picks. Quickly, Jamian Sherwood, linebacker from Auburn, Michael Carter II, the quarterback from Duke, and Jason Pinnock, the quarterback from Pittsburgh. That's the guy Ralph likes. What's your take on all 3?
Just, I suppose, more so from an overall perspective of how we ended up the draft. I kind of liked the plan of attack, like as much as we could have went a little bit more on the O-line and things like that. Like we drafted 3 cornerbacks there. I think, you know, if one of those guys hits on top of a few of our top round picks, that makes this from a good draft to a great draft. And similarly, with the safety guys that we drafted 2 sort of safety linebacker hybrid guys in the later rounds as well. If one of those out of the 2 hit as well, again, you know, it's a spectacular draft. In terms of the individuals, I didn't really know too much about Sherwood. Carter was a sort of a speed guy. He has a bit of potential. I've watched him playing a few games because if I recall, Revis's cousin played opposite him in Duke too. So yeah, he looks a physical guy that has the potential to do something. Pinnock as well, another guy, yeah, really physical. I think the whole sort of Pittsburgh sort of college, the way they play cornerback down there as well, it prepares them for the NFL. So I think he's going to come into camp and be ready to sort of earn a roster spot there for sure. So yeah, I like what we did in round 5. Again, yeah, we could have maybe opted for O-line as well and things like that. But, you know, I think when you look at what we needed, cornerback was a huge issue. And I think trying to maybe find one guy there to fill a need was probably going to be pretty impossible. So I like the fact then that he drafted 3, and he did add a few more in undrafted free agents too. So overall, yeah, like I like what we've done in round 5 and for the rest of the draft, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know if I could speak for Ray, but Ray, would you have liked to have seen him draft Sean Wade?
I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I thought, you know, seeing Ohio State up close because of where I am, I saw him the year before, and he was a slot back. He covered the guys on the inside instead of an outside DB, and he was outstanding. I mean, he was rated as a first rounder last year, but he struggled mightily on the outside. I thought he would have been worth a flyer to try. I think if there was one pick though that I would have liked to seen him grab, and the guy lasted till the 6th round, it was the lineman out of Tennessee, Trey Smith, and of all teams, the Chiefs, who already had stocked up, took him in the 6th round. And I thought that was one that we really could have just, he might be a guy who could have stepped in and played from day one. But Shaun Wade, that was a little, I wouldn't say I was upset about it, but I think that would have been worth a flyer with how good he looked the year before on the inside.
Just right here, I just want to do a shout out. If you bear with me, Rich and Ray, we have a listener who pointed out I made an error in the last podcast. I didn't think that Shaun Wade was drafted, but I want a shout out to Zach Davis, a listener who actually corrected me, as well as Ray Clifford from Boise, Idaho at the time. So thanks a lot, Zach. I appreciate it. Anytime you want, any mistakes I make, just feel free, contact us. All right, in the 6th round with 3 picks, and my personal favorite is this guy. I can never pronounce his name. I'll go through it quick. Hamza Najiruddin from Florida State. Then they got Brandon Echols, cornerback from Kentucky, and Jonathan Marshall, defensive tackle from Arkansas. What's your take on this, Rich?
I think Hamza Najiruddin is probably one of my favorite late round picks. Like, he was outstanding value. He was our 80th ranked player, very versatile. Like, this guy's a football player. He's got a lot of physical ability too. Again, he might develop more into an outside linebacker, maybe adds another 10, 15 pound. He has the sort of instincts to play that position. So yeah, he's probably my favorite pick of the last 5 or 6. Eccles, again, I didn't really know much about him from Kentucky. I think more he's looking as a competition in the slot. But Jonathan Marshall, again, was another guy. He was probably maybe 5th round grade with us as well. I like his potential to come in and, like, maybe in limited action, have maybe a role moving forward in the defense as maybe rushing the passer from the inside. So overall for round 6 as well, like, love the picks. Like, as I said, Najiruddin, for me, he's probably one of the guys that I'd look at if I was looking at somebody who was going to, like, exceed expectations from this year's draft. He's that guy for me.
And Rich, on the last podcast when I had Ralph Schrager on, I kind of said he's coming off a major injury, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if he follows the same path as Bryce Hall, where he's on the PUP list to start the season, then the injury reserve, and then we see him like in week 8 or week 9, whenever he's able to come off. So I want to see him play, but I want him to play healthy. And my feeling was that when Bryce Hall came back, he was playing better and better as the season tailed off. So, all right. As far as the undrafted free agents, do you have the list in front of you? Because I could go through it quickly.
Yeah, sure. Just 1 second.
Okay. And just give me your take, because, of course, it's a numbers game now. They got to go from like 90 down to 53 plus the practice squad.
Yeah, I suppose probably I don't really put a lot of emphasis in the undrafted free agents. Like, there's 1 or 2 guys there this year, but specifically that for me, actually, I probably would have drafted. And the first guy is probably the Kenny Yeboah, the tight end from Mississippi. I probably would have been okay with the Jets drafting him in round 4 or 5. I think he's got a nice ability. I think that unit as well is probably still lacking in, like, established talent. There's a lot of sort of almost guys in that group. So he's a guy that could come in as an undrafted free agent for me this year and create a little niche, sort of maybe 100 and 200 snaps this year that you probably mightn't have expected him to get, and actually perform well in it. And he's the type of guy that over a couple of years could develop into something like a decent starter. So I like the fact being that he chose to come to us as well and what we were doing. There's been a couple of guys who had options there, and for them to choose the Jets, and that's a good sign too. So he was probably the guy that really ticked the box for me, because again, that was probably a position we probably could have drafted.
Right. And Ray, should I ask him the question I've been asking every week for the last 3 months?
Sure. Why not?
Well, yeah. Where does this put Ryan Griffin, the tight end? Your opinion?
Again, the ball's in his court. Like, I think, you know, we have the sort of history with a few of these guys here as fans, but like, I think if Robert Saleh's good at his job and serious about his job, all these guys are kind of going to have clean slates coming into camp. That's kind of the way I see it. You know, like, yeah, sure, they might have watched tape and stuff like that, but if these guys come in and camp and perform in the system, and you know, maybe they're asked to do different things in a different way and it suits them, you just never know how it's going to work out. But again, for me, the tight end, like, it's a weak position for us, and it has been for quite a few years. I would have probably liked to have maybe spent, like, maybe somebody like Kyle Rudolph, an experienced guy coming in, particularly when we knew that we were going to be drafting a rookie quarterback. I thought maybe an experienced guy like that, who, you know, could be a bit of a safety blanket, would have been an ideal move in free agency. But again, yeah, it just kind of depends on these guys when they do enter the camp this year under the new circumstances, how they do. And, you know, like we can't tell. We can go on past that. Yeah, we have a lot of tight ends there that haven't really been good enough, but maybe they will be under this system. Who knows?
Yeah. Were you surprised, going back to the draft, because I want to mention him, were you surprised they didn't draft a kicker with all their picks?
Yes and no. Like, I think you look at kicker's probably becoming a bit more of an important position. There's a lot of guys getting cut like week after week for the first 8 weeks of the season. It's nearly becoming ritualistic at this stage. So it's ramping up in importance. And to be fair, it always was important. Like, I think probably Nick Folk was probably our best kicker over the last few years, and he was probably undervalued in terms of like how clutch he actually was in winning us quite a lot of games there. Like, we've had kickers in the past who, in them scenarios, have just like absolutely like ruined it, you know, like a technically great performance, you know. So like, to have a reliable one there, I think is very important, particularly with the system we're probably going to play, where, you know, getting into the red zone, we need to score points regardless. Obviously, touchdowns are the main thing, but we want to have a reliable kicker that we can, you know, put the defense back out in the field after scoring 3. So I was a little bit surprised that we didn't look, but then again, I'm also a little bit surprised that we'd also put the emphasis in a rookie kicker, because you just don't know how they're going to perform. I think kicker is probably an area where you can maybe spend a little bit more than the league norm. Like, you know, if the average is 3 million and you're spending 4.5, it's not really going to break the bank over $200 million salary. Yeah. Have somebody reliable that can win a game for you, you know?
Yeah, Ray, were you surprised they didn't draft the kicker? I think the Bengals picked up that kicker from Florida. I might be mistaken in the fifth round.
I think it was Florida State, wasn't he? I'm not sure. You know, I'm kind of in agreement with Rich. I mean, anytime you're drafting a kicker, I think you're taking a chance. But when it's a late round like that, sometimes they're worth a flyer. But I don't think it hurts if you don't. You know, kicker, you know, somebody like, I don't think like Adam Vinatieri was drafted. I don't think a lot of the kickers in the league were necessarily drafted, because it's just not a position that you want to use a draft pick on, depending on, you know, unless you just have, you know, not as many holes to fill. So I don't think it was a huge thing. It would have been okay with me if they did take one, but I wasn't really concerned. I would like to have seen him bring in 1 or 2 more, though, just one,
right?
And have a competition with maybe 3 kickers as opposed to just 2.
The undrafted free agent kicker they signed is from SMU, Chris Nagar, Naggar. So we'll have to see how he works out. Fickens is still on the roster. Rich, anybody else that you really liked as far as the undrafted free agents besides Zuboa?
Yeah, that edge rusher from Oregon State, Hamish Enrique, he did a really bad production in 2020, but the previous year, like, he quite a lot of sacks. I watched a couple of interviews about him afterwards, and like, it was a change of position and what he was asked to do. So he was probably playing a more versatile role last year that didn't really suit him in terms of getting on the stat sheet rushing the passer. But that could actually prove out to be like a one sort of exercising and gaining extra skills that could have you standing out rushing the passer at the next level. Like, I think he's probably a long shot to make the team, but you know, when you see a guy with the potential to do what he did in 2019, coming into an area where he could be the kind of odd guy out in terms of like who teams are going to pick up, you know, that's the kind of guy that can surprise and maybe become a decent pass rusher under those type of scenarios, you know.
And as you say that, and Ray and I and Ralph were all waiting and waiting for Jabari Zuniga to get on the field and do something. I keep hearing about
So
how
we
this
can
guy
find
looks
out
in
if he
practice.
has any talent.
Yeah, we keep hearing about all this talent, but I'd like to see it.
I think, you know, sometimes we maybe expect a little bit too much of draft picks early on. Like sometimes you'll have a guy coming in the 5th round and he looks like a superstar from day one. And then sometimes it takes guys in round 2, 3 years to establish themselves. It just depends on the position, where they land, what talents around them, all of that type of stuff. So Zuniga, granted, he wouldn't have having a lot of competition to overcome. But again, I don't think the strength was really there in the D-line for him to ever have excelled anyway, had he have seen a lot of the field.
Right.
I think guys make
Right.
a significant jump a lot of times in that first year to second year where they've had a year under their belt. They're a little more, things slow down for them. The game slows down. They become a little more comfortable. This year's a little different for some of these guys in their second year, though, because it's a whole new regime. They're going to be learning a new scheme, learning a new playbook. So it'll be a lot of these guys who are in their second year. It's going to be similar to their rookie year. They're learning all over again. So we'll see if Zuniga can maybe make a jump. Maybe this scheme will fit him a little better too. So we'll see.
And then COVID as well, like the changes in terms of camp and all of that could have having a knock-on effect for. So any of them sort of young guys, I'm kind of giving the benefit of the doubt. They have a 4-year contract for a reason. Unless they really look like they don't belong, you kind of want to give them 2 or 3 years to prove you type of wrong that they can't make it. You know what I mean?
Well, and usually the old story is when there's a new general manager, he has no loyalty to guys drafted from the previous. Now, he drafted Zuniga, but everyone before him, you know, Joe Douglas has, this goes for every general manager. They have no loyalty to any pick that was not their pick.
Yeah, but if he has talent, he's going to keep him around. Let's put it. If he shows he can do it, he's not going to get rid.
But if he picked them and he's not shown, he's always going to get an extra.
He's going to give him that extra.
Yeah.
Benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
Now, Rich, there's a player that Ralph and I were fascinated with, and he happened to go to the same school as Rashad Jr., Oregon State, Isaiah Dunn. And the reason being, there were 6 teams interested in him, and the Jets paid more for him as an undrafted free agent than anyone. Ralph Schrager, our other co-host, who's like a film buff, he could not come up with any tape on this guy. Do you know anything about this guy, Isaiah Dunn from Oregon State?
Yeah, well, I think that it was a record $185,000 contract that he was given. There was quite a few teams after him. Just, I suppose, maybe just looking like maybe he doesn't pop on the tape, but just like looking at season over season, you can sort of improvement, I guess. I think the fact being he's 5'11", 180 coming into the league. Again, not exactly an ideal size for a cornerback. Maybe they see him as in that he's got the speed. The 4.38 is kind of the thing that's like enticing people in, that if they can teach them a few little more nuances of the position, that they might find a player like, you know, like, I know it's an old saying, you can't teach speed, and I don't technically believe in it, because you can create like speed, if you know what I mean, by creating space. But yeah, I think a lot of teams get like sort of wooed in. If you look at quite a few of our cornerbacks that we brought in, they've all run in the 4.3s. Like I think at least 3 of them have anyway. So they are going in that sort of like speed area. And, you know, it's probably when you're looking at how the NFL and how teams are really like taking the top off, like really good teams are, you know, they're hitting deep from in on the sort of slot guys now. Like they're not afraid having them go routes to, like, you know, take the top off defenses when they take advantage of safeties. So to have a guy that probably has that speed to cover like a safety is probably not a bad thing. It's probably the short stuff then that he's going to struggle with. That's probably would be the only knock.
Right. All right. We're actually entering the fourth quarter. It's we've got about 10 or 12 minutes left. Couple of different things. He asked me about Ryan Griffin. Tell me if these two guys are Jets September 1st. Greg Van Routen.
Somebody would need to step up. Like, I don't think he's earned the roster spot going on his performance last year, really, like, as in to say that he's shoot in. So, yeah, like, I think he's probably on the cusp for me, if I'm being honest.
Ray Clifford guaranteed in writing that Cameron Clark is going to be a 10-year Pro Bowler.
Well, I think
I don't remember that.
the type of player that's going to get given a good opportunity that moving forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually solidifies himself as a starter this year. That's kind of the guy I feel I'm penciling in as a potential right guard this year.
Right. All right, here's the big one. Jamison Crowder, is he a Jet September 1st?
First of all, I think he should be, because I don't think we need the cap for whatever reason. I think he's had a couple of very good years here. He's been reliable. I think having an experienced wide receiver like that is going to help Wilson along. And I think, as much as you don't want to hamper a rookie, you don't want to expect a rookie slot guy to come in and deliver like Crowder from the get-go, because obviously if Crowder's cut and he comes in and fails to deliver like Crowder, immediately he's a bust, So you don't want to be kind of setting yourself up for that either. For me, as I said, I'd keep him. But again, you just wouldn't know with this new regime. I think, as I said, he's shown enough to this regime and to the NFL in general that he's worth probably what we're paying him, and he's probably been the only wide receiver that we've had over the last couple of years.
He's my favorite Jet list here. Ray, I want to ask you, Steve Nelson, a defensive back from the Steelers, is available. I've heard he wants to be a Jet, but it's a matter of money. He's a veteran defensive back. He's supposed to be pretty good. I heard he would fit this scheme. Would you sign him at the expense of Crowder if you could?
I don't know a ton about him. So, I mean, unless the coaches are really sold on him, I'd say no. I would stick with Crowder. But I think between Elijah Moore and some of the other guys they brought in, that might be to take Crowder's spot. But I mean, if they're sold on him, I would have drafted one less cornerback though, and gone with that if that's what they have in mind, is looking for a vet.
Right.
I'd stick with Crowder unless they're sold on him though.
Rich, do you have any feeling about this Steve Nelson?
Well, I just think in general, I think the possibility that we do bring in a cornerback before the season starts quite high, just from the youth perspective of what we have there. Like Hall, I do like his chances of developing nicely over the next couple of years, but I think like if he's going in there potentially as the number one corner next year, it's a lot to be putting on his shoulders. I do think Sherman, was talk of him. So the fact that talk was happening too means the Jets are potentially weighing up options. And again, like even if you think back to like over a decade ago, corners become available. We drafted Cromartie, or we traded for Cromartie, I think, for a second round pick to join up with Revis. Now, we're not saying we're in that scenario now, but we still have got a lot of draft capital next year. And if a good cornerback did become available via trade that could come in and improve the roster, I think that's quite possible to happen too. But I don't think the roster at cornerback is full yet for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to talk about now. We got to wrap this up. The Jets will be in London at a place called Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Is that right?
It's a Tottenham Hotspur over here, or Spurs.
Close enough.
Yeah, it was a pretty good attempt. Now, to be fair.
Sorry. So you're going to the game, right? Are there any hints you could give Jet fans or Jets Rewind fans that are going to go over there? I think there's going to be a little bit less than they normally would because of the virus. but any hints you could give them? And do you know any
Yeah,
good?
you see, I think over in London when they come, it's kind of like a week-long event, if you know what I mean. So there's a lot of things happening. There's like in Piccadilly Circus, they'll have parades coming down, all that type of stuff. And there's a lot of pubs that you'll get on the team website actually that would be like jet-friendly pubs and whatnot. So the team itself actually really looks after it. Then there's a couple of guys who would run events over there too. The last time I was in London, I've actually got a couple of photos of myself with Foreman Ed's helmet on and stuff like that. So like for us to see all of those guys, it's a great opportunity. We don't get to see it too often.
How many people do you go with?
Well, the last time I went, it was with myself and my wife and with a friend and his wife. But we met up with a lot of other Jet fans that we know from all over England and Ireland and that too. So like it's kind of a bit a get together for European Jet fans. I know a few guys from Germany and a few other places too that we all meet up and have a few beers. And
listen, just so you know, Ray Clifford, who's in Ohio, he is a connoisseur of beer. Are you a beer guy?
I'm not really a huge beer guy. Like I don't mind the odd pint of Guinness every now and again, but other than like usually the beer you get in Ireland and England, as much as like it's like raved on about, some of the European beers are actually a lot nicer. I'm not supposed to say that as an Irish guy, but
right.
I will say I was in Ireland back in 2013, and I love Guinness. I went on the tour of the brewery and everything. That was outstanding. But I enjoy a lot of different beers, but Guinness is my top one.
That's
I've
right.
got a question for you, Rich. Now, you've heard me talk on how I feel about the draft, but I'd like to hear from you. What was your, and forget about Zach Wilson, he was the top pick. Marty, you can chime in too at some point on it, but take away Zach Wilson. What was your favorite pick? And if you had one guy that was available at some point that you were hoping they'd take, it didn't. Like with me, it was my favorite one was Vera Tucker, and I wish they'd have taken Trey Smith in the late rounds, the tackle out or guard out of Tennessee. But did you have anybody in mind that you wish they might have gone after that was available?
Like I suppose like the favorite pick for me was that Hamza Nasruddin in the area we got him in terms of value and all that. He was probably the favorite guy there, and one of the ones I think that can like develop into something.
Yeah.
I suppose just the tight end position, the guy from Boston College, like I think.
Yeah.
Hunter Green.
Yeah, like when we lost our third round picks, I think that kind of scuppered our plans to potentially draft a tight end. I think that was kind of the sweet spot there. But like, when you go into round 4 and you end up with Carter running back, you can't really complain because again, that was the other area that needed a little bit of improvement. So yeah, that was probably maybe, would I swap Tucker for a tight end in round 3? I don't think I would. Like, so that's why I can't really complain,
Ray, mine was a Sean Wade, just because I was fascinated how bad he played this year. And I looked into him, and he was just such a top prospect. And the second one is a center from Pittsburgh called, I think, Jim Morrissey, who was a walk-on.
Yeah. And
he ended up playing, I think, 47 out of 50 games and became a team captain. And he was I love these overachievers that just stop at nothing. So those are mine.
Who are your favorite?
My favorite picks?
Yeah. Take away Zach Wilson. What was your favorite one?
I like Michael Carter, the running back. I was watching a lot of film of him. He reminds me, there was an old time running back. I think it was a little before Rich's time. Kansas City Chiefs, Mike Garrett. Remember him, Ray?
Oh yeah.
He looked like him. He had a lot of moves like him. So I think I have high hopes for him. And I think he's going to touch the ball a lot more times than people think. I said between 15 and 18 times as far as kickoffs and punt returns and throwing out of the backfield. We're going to wrap this up. I just want to mention that Rich Tinley from Ireland will be at the game in London signing autographs for Jets Rewind fans. He writes about the Jets for Draftek.com. Is that right, Rich?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, which is he Does
have a
it,
review up on the Jets page. You can read my thoughts and grades, and we've only done actually round 1 and 2 this year. So my thoughts on the immediately, like we usually write our comments within
Right.
10 minutes here in the pick, so it's quite impulsive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think we kind of knew Wilson was probably a
oh,
start.
sure.
Yeah.
It's Draftek, DRAFTEK.com. You see what I'm fighting. Rich, I want to thank you so much. Coming
Brilliant
on
to be back,
today.
man.
Thanks for helping out. And don't hang up as we sign off. Until next time, this has been Marty Shootpath with Jets Rewind. Oh, that was great.
You're still
Yeah.
recording.
Totally enjoyed it.
Still got 2 minutes, but
You're still recording.
oh. Ah.